He's a smart one, isn't he?
Caesar continues to show cognitive skills that far exceed that of a human counterpart.
This ape is smarter than 99% of humans. Raised secretly in a normal house, he learns to communicate, think, and even feel just like us. But when he's thrown into a cruel facility filled with abusive guards, he doesn't just get mad, he gets smart. How does one single ape bring the entire human race to its knees? Let's find out in Rise of the Planet of the Apes. The story kicks off in a massive, dense forest in Africa. Dozens of chimpanzees are happily swinging through the trees, but suddenly, their peace is completely shattered by a group of ruthless hunters. They set traps, throw nets, and capture several chimps. These captured apes are locked inside boxes and shipped straight to a research lab in America for testing. At a massive research facility in San Francisco called Gen Sys works a brilliant scientist named Will Rodman. Will has one ultimate goal in life: to create the perfect cure for Alzheimer's disease. There's a deep emotional reason behind this. Will's own father, Charles, is suffering from this terrible illness. Seeing his father slowly lose his memory day by day is something Will simply cannot accept. So he begins testing his newly developed drug, ALZ-112, on the chimps brought from Africa. Among the many chimps in the lab, one is named Bright Eyes, because after taking the drug, her eyes started glowing with a strange, vibrant light. And the most shocking part? The drug works like absolute magic on her. Her intelligence and IQ levels skyrocket way beyond normal chimps, and she starts behaving with incredible human-like intelligence. Seeing this unbelievable success, Will is overjoyed. He rushes to his boss, Stephen Jacobs, to deliver the amazing news. Hearing this, Jacobs is thrilled and orders Will to present Bright Eyes to the board of investors the very next day. If this project succeeds, they will all become millionaires. The next morning, the investors arrive with high hopes. Will is dressed in a suit, totally ready for his big presentation. But right at that moment, absolute chaos breaks out in the lab. Bright Eyes suddenly starts acting completely insane. She breaks out of her cage and starts smashing everything in sight. When the security guards try to stop her, she violently attacks them too. Eventually, she shatters the lab glass and bursts straight into the conference room right in front of the terrified investors. Everyone is shaking with fear. With no other option, the security guards open fire, and Bright Eyes meets a sudden, tragic end right in front of everyone. Will is left frozen in shock. All his hard work and the chimp he cared for, gone in an instant. Furious, Jacobs orders Will to shut down the project immediately and eliminate all the chimps inside the lab, refusing to take any more risks for the company's image. Will is completely broken. He just couldn't understand why Bright Eyes suddenly went so crazy. But later, when the lab caretaker, Robert, goes to clean the cages, he discovers a shocking truth. He runs to Will and reveals that Bright Eyes didn't actually go crazy. She was pregnant, and she was just trying to protect her newborn baby from the guards. Will rushes to the cage and finds a tiny, adorable baby chimp hiding in the corner, shaking with fear. Will gently picks him up and tells Robert that he absolutely cannot end the life of this innocent creature. Instead, he decides to take him home. Will hides the baby inside his jacket and sneaks him out. At home, his father, Charles, is delighted to see the little guy. Looking at a Shakespeare book, he names the baby chimp Caesar, and so Caesar's new life begins. Initially, Will planned to send Caesar to a good animal shelter after a while. But within a few days, Will is amazed to see that Caesar is no ordinary chimp. The effects of the ALZ-112 drug from his mother, Bright Eyes, have been passed down directly into his DNA. Caesar starts learning things at an unbelievable speed.
He holds his bottle and drinks milk just like a human. He opens the fridge and gets his own food. And incredibly, at just a few months old, he learns sign language. When Will asks him in sign language what he wants to eat, Caesar perfectly gestures back that he wants milk. Will realizes Caesar is becoming just as intelligent as a human. He is no longer just a test subject. He becomes like Will's own son. Will dresses him in clothes and raises him exactly like a human child. Fast forward a few years, Caesar has grown much bigger and stronger. He lives in the attic of Will's house, spending his days staring out the window at the outside world. He watches the neighborhood kids playing and riding bikes, but Will has strict rules. Caesar is never allowed to go outside. One day, Caesar sees a kid riding a beautiful bike. Tempted, he sneaks out of the house, takes the bike from the kid, and tries to ride it himself. But the terrified kid starts screaming, bringing his angry father rushing out with a baseball bat to attack Caesar. Trying to protect himself, Caesar gets injured in his leg. Will runs out to save him and immediately rushes him to a veterinarian named Caroline. Caroline is absolutely amazed by Caesar's intelligence and human-like behavior. Over time, Will and Caroline develop a close relationship. She often visits the house and spends time with Caesar. One day, Will, Caroline, and Caesar take a trip to a massive forest called the Redwoods. There, Caesar joyfully swings through the giant trees, experiencing a strange, beautiful sense of freedom for the very first time. But on their way home, another issue arises. Caesar gets scared by a dog and runs to Will, prompting the dog's owner to make a very nasty comment. In that moment, Caesar realizes the outside world is not safe for him at all. Back home, a heartbroken Caesar sits in silence. He asks Will through sign language, who is he really? Is he a human or just a pet? Will tries to explain how special he is and reveals the true story of his birth. But a massive question has already taken root in Caesar's mind. He realizes he doesn't look like these humans, but his mind and thoughts are exactly like theirs. Meanwhile, Charles's Alzheimer's disease takes a turn for the worse. It gets so bad that he doesn't even recognize his own son. Left with no other choice, Will makes a desperate decision. He injects his father directly with the stolen drug from the lab. The next morning, a miracle happens. Charles isn't just cured, his memory becomes sharper than ever before. Will is beyond thrilled because his drug actually works on humans. But Will's happiness wasn't meant to last long. This drug had a fatal side effect that Will didn't even notice. His father's illness will return, and in that situation, Caesar will do something that changes everything. What will Caesar do? Why will he be forced to leave his home and enter a terrifying life of captivity? Stick around to find out because the real suspense has just begun. Captivity and the Dark World. Will's father Charles was completely cured thanks to the medicine, but nature's rules are beyond human control. 5 smooth years pass by. Charles's immune system begins to fight off the ALZ-112 drug. As a result, the medicine stops working, and his Alzheimer's disease returns even more aggressively than before. Will realizes his cure was just a temporary fix. Desperate, he goes back to his boss, Jacobs, explaining that he needs to slightly tweak the formula to create a much stronger drug, ALZ-113. Jacobs only smells money. Knowing this new drug could send their company's stock prices to the moon, he gives Will the green light to start working on it.
Meanwhile, a heartbreaking tragedy unfolds at Will's house. One morning, Charles becomes so confused by his illness that he mistakenly gets into the car of their hot-tempered neighbor, Hunsaker. He starts the engine and crashes it straight into another vehicle. Hearing the crash, Hunsaker rushes outside. Seeing his damaged car, he completely loses his mind. He drags the elderly Charles out of the car, throws him to the ground, and starts viciously screaming at him. Caesar watches the whole thing from his window. Seeing someone attack Charles, a man he loves like a grandfather, is something he simply cannot accept. In a split second, his wild animal instincts take over. He shatters the window, leaps down into the street, and violently attacks Hunsaker. He viciously takes him down, even biting off one of his fingers. Will runs out and desperately manages to pull Caesar off, but the damage is already done. Moments later, the police and animal control arrive. The court gives a strict order. Caesar can no longer live in human society. They command him to be locked away in a place called the San Bruno Primate Shelter. Will begs and pleads to stop them, but against the law, he is completely powerless. Will promises Caesar that no matter what, he will get him out of there very soon. From the outside, this primate shelter looks beautiful and well kept, but inside, it's absolute hell. The owner, John Landon, pretends to be a good guy in front of Will, but his son, Dodge Landon, is a complete psychopath who brutally abuses the chimps and monkeys. After Will leaves, Caesar is thrown into a general enclosure with all the other wild apes. A new horror begins for him. Having grown up with human love and care, he has no idea how wild ape society actually works. The enclosure is ruled by a powerful alpha chimp named Rocket. He immediately attacks Caesar, beating him mercilessly, making it brutally clear that he has no place there. Terrified, Caesar cowers in a corner. Seeing his miserable state, an elderly orangutan named Maurice approaches him. Having worked in a circus, Maurice knows sign language. The two begin communicating silently. Maurice explains that this place is nothing like the human world. To survive here, he must adapt to their brutal rules. Caesar stays awake all night, staring at the cage door, waiting for Will. He truly believed Will would come and take him away, but instead, the cruel guard, Dodge, begins tormenting him. One day, he blasts Caesar with a high-pressure hose of freezing water. Shivering in pain, Caesar finally realizes the beautiful outside world is gone for him. On the other hand, Will simply cannot live without Caesar. He tries to bribe Landon with a lot of money to release him, but because of the strict court order, Landon refuses. Will goes inside the shelter to visit Caesar. Seeing Will, Caesar's eyes light up with hope. But when Will tells him that he can't take him home and that he must stay there, Caesar's heart shatters completely. Filled with anger and resentment, he turns his back on Will and walks right back into his cage. After Will leaves, a strange and terrifying change begins inside Caesar. He wipes away the drawing of his bedroom window he had sketched on the wall. He realizes humans will never truly be their family. To survive this hell, he can no longer be a human's pet. He must unlock his true inner strength. Sitting in silence, he sharply observes everything around him. Caesar realizes that to survive, he can't fight alone. He needs to become the absolute leader of this entire ape empire. But how does a house pet lead a tribe of wild, powerful apes? How will he defeat Rocket and earn everyone's respect? Preparation for rebellion. Caesar knows that by brute force alone, he could never beat Rocket. He has to use his superior intelligence. He watches the shelter's routine closely.
One day, waiting for the perfect moment, he smoothly pickpockets a small knife from a visiting worker, keeping it completely hidden. At night, when everyone is fast asleep, Caesar uses that knife to carefully unlock his cage. But he doesn't escape alone. He heads straight for the darkest cell in the shelter, where a massive, angry silverback gorilla named Buck is locked away. Buck is so terrifying that, let alone other apes, even the shelter staff are too afraid to go near him. Caesar unlocks Buck's cage. At first, Buck is furious, but when Caesar calmly lowers his head in a sign of deep respect, Buck realizes Caesar means no harm. He accepts Caesar's dominance and instantly becomes his most loyal bodyguard. The next morning, when all the apes are gathered in the open yard, Caesar steps right up to Rocket, puffing out his chest. Furious, Rocket charges forward to attack, but right at that moment, the giant gorilla, Buck, steps up behind Caesar. Seeing Buck's terrifying presence, Rocket backs down in fear. Caesar then easily takes Rocket down to the ground, but he doesn't finish him off. Instead, he forgives Rocket and welcomes him into his own ranks. Witnessing this incredible mercy and intelligence, all the chimps, orangutans, and monkeys in the shelter begin to show him immense respect. Just like that, Caesar becomes the undisputed leader, the absolute alpha of the primate shelter. Meanwhile, Will finally clears up all the legal mess and gets permission to take Caesar home. Overjoyed, he arrives at the shelter to pick him up. Will calls Caesar to step out of the cage and come home with him. But Caesar does something Will never saw coming in his wildest dreams. Caesar grabs the cage door and pulls it shut himself. He signs to Will, making it crystal clear that he no longer wants to be a human's pet. This world inside the cage is his real home now. Heartbroken and utterly devastated, Will realizes he has lost his Caesar forever. After Will leaves, Caesar holds a secret meeting with his ape army. He explains to Maurice through sign language that a single ape is weak, but if they stand together, they can be incredibly strong. However, Caesar knows perfectly well that while his army is physically strong, they lack human-level intelligence. To fight against humans, they need to get smarter.
So Caesar comes up with an absolute master plan. In the dead of night, he breaks out of his cage, secretly escapes the shelter, and heads straight to Will's house. He knows exactly where Will keeps the canisters of the new highly potent ALZ-113 drug in the fridge. He carefully steals a few canisters and returns to the shelter under the cover of darkness. Then, Caesar unleashes the drug canisters inside the shelter. The gas quickly spreads everywhere, and all the sleeping apes breathe it in. The next morning, a bizarre sight unfolds. The eyes of every single ape in the cages are glowing with a vibrant green light. Caesar's plan worked flawlessly. Thanks to the drug, these ordinary apes have overnight become smarter than humans. Later that morning, when the cruel Judge Landon arrives at the shelter, he instantly senses that the apes are acting completely different. To scare Caesar, he goes to strike him with his electric stun baton. But this time, Caesar doesn't just sit back. He grabs the baton tightly right out of Dodge's hand. Dodge is stunned, and right at that very moment, Caesar opens his mouth and screams in clear, perfectly spoken human language, "No!" This single word flips the entire movie upside down. Dodge freezes in pure terror, and this becomes the ape's very first cry for freedom. What happens next? How will these hyper-intelligent apes bring the human city to its knees? Hearing human words from Caesar's mouth, Dodge Landon is so shocked that he completely loses his ability to move for a few seconds. Seizing the opportunity, Caesar shoves him to the ground. All the hyper-intelligent apes break out of their cages. To save himself, Dodge throws his electric stun baton at Caesar, but it hits the metal cage, causing a massive short circuit, and Dodge meets a shocking end right there. Caesar didn't actually want to finish him off, but the situation left no other choice. Next, Caesar leads his massive ape army to smash through the shelter's main gate, stepping out into the real world. Their only goal: to snatch back their freedom. They swarm the streets of San Francisco. Seeing so many giant chimps and gorillas, the terrified humans run for their lives in every direction. Caesar's main target is the Genesis laboratory. He knows there are still many apes locked inside, enduring cruel experiments. Following Caesar's command, the ape army charges straight towards the lab. Meanwhile, another massive disaster has already begun inside the lab. Will's new ALZ-113 drug made the apes smarter, but for humans, it is a deadly, highly contagious virus. Will's lab assistant, Franklin, had accidentally been exposed to the virus, falling critically ill. He tried to warn Will, but before he could, he tragically lost his life, bleeding out. In that horrifying moment, Will realizes that in the name of medicine, he has actually created the ultimate weapon of human destruction. Right then, Caesar's army attacks the Genesis lab. They shatter the glass, storm inside, and free every single ape trapped in the cages. Among these prisoners is a terrifying-looking chimp named Koba. Due to endless human experiments, Koba's entire body is covered in scars, and he's even lost one of his eyes. Koba harbors pure, burning hatred and rage against humans. The moment he's free, he starts destroying everything in the lab. When the lab boss, Jacob, sees through the security cameras that hundreds of intelligent apes are destroying his facility, he shakes with terror and calls the police. But by then, Caesar has already led his army out of the lab, and now hundreds of newly freed apes from Genesis have joined his ranks.
Caesar leads his army to a high vantage point. Using sign language, he points to their ultimate destination, the Redwood Forest. Because that was the only place Caesar had ever felt true freedom. They start making their way across the city, climbing massive buildings, trees, and power lines. But standing between the city and the forest is San Francisco's famous Golden Gate Bridge. Jacobs and the police have figured out the apes' route, so they completely blockade the bridge. Hundreds of heavily armed police officers take their positions on the other side. Police helicopters patrol from above. The police assume these are just regular monkeys, thinking a few rounds of gunfire will easily scare them away. But they have no idea that these apes now possess human-level intelligence, and their leader, Caesar, knows human tactics perfectly well. An epic, historical war between humans and intelligent apes is about to begin. Who will win this ultimate showdown on the Golden Gate Bridge? Will Caesar safely lead his army to the forest, or will their dream of freedom be shattered by police gunfire? The Battle of the Golden Gate Bridge. A breathtaking, nerve-wracking situation unfolds on the Golden Gate Bridge. On one side, a heavily armed police force, and on the other, Caesar's ape army. Desperate for their freedom, covered in thick fog, the apes come to a halt at one end of the bridge. Caesar knows perfectly well that if they charge straight at the police, they will all fall to the gunfire. So he devises an absolute mastermind strategy. He commands the giant gorilla, Buck, and the other powerful gorillas to push the massive buses on the road towards the police, using them as moving shields. Meanwhile, he orders the orangutans and smaller monkeys to climb the massive cables of the bridge and attack from above. But the most important part? Caesar gives his army strict orders not to cause any fatal harm to the humans. He simply wants to clear the path and reach the forest. The epic battle begins. The police open fire, but thanks to the bus shields, they can't do much damage. From above, the apes swing down from the cables, dropping right onto the police officers' heads. They snatch the weapons from their hands and pin them to the ground, but leave them completely unharmed. Absolute chaos erupts all over the bridge. Right in the middle of this, the greedy Jacobs arrives above the bridge in a police helicopter, armed with a machine gun. He starts firing blindly at the apes from the sky. Many apes are injured by his attacks. Caesar realizes that if they don't stop this helicopter, none of them will survive. That's when the massive gorilla, Buck, the one Caesar freed from the dark cell, makes the ultimate sacrifice. Holding a giant iron rod, he fearlessly leaps straight onto the flying helicopter. Buck's terrifying attack destroys the chopper's balance, causing it to crash and get stuck right on the edge of the bridge. Because of Buck's bravery, the ape army is saved. But Buck himself is critically injured, and he takes his final breath right in Caesar's arms. Caesar is deeply heartbroken by the loss of his most loyal friend. Meanwhile, the helicopter is dangling dangerously off the edge of the bridge, with Jacobs trapped inside. Desperate to survive, Jacobs begs Caesar for help. He knows Caesar has mercy in his heart. Caesar stares at Jacobs for a moment, and then slowly turns his back and walks away. Right at that moment, Koba, the chimp filled with pure hatred for humans, steps up. He looks down at Jacobs, gives a terrifying smile, and kicks the helicopter, sending it plunging deep into the river below. Jacob's greed and arrogance finally meet a dark, tragic end.
Finally defeating the police force, Caesar and his ape army reached the long-awaited redwood forest. They climbed to the very top of the massive trees, looking down at the city below. They have finally achieved their true freedom. Right at that moment, Will arrives in the forest. After a desperate search, he finally finds Caesar. Will tries to convince him to come back home, warning him that the humans will never let him live in peace out here. Will promises that he will always protect him. Caesar slowly walks toward Will. He gently takes Will's hand in his own, leans in close to his ear, and whispers in completely clear spoken human language, "Caesar is home." Hearing these words, Will is completely stunned, but a moment later, tears fill his eyes. He realizes Caesar's path is now entirely different. He is no longer a pet. He is the leader of a free, independent nation. Will says his final goodbye and slowly walks away. As the sun sets, Caesar sits high in the trees with his ape army, watching over their new kingdom. But the movie doesn't end there. In the final scene, we see Will's hot-tempered neighbor, Hunsaker, who is actually a commercial pilot by profession, walking through an airport. But what he doesn't know is that after coming into contact with Will's infected assistant, Franklin, he has contracted the deadly ALZ-113 virus. Hunsaker boards his flight, and blood begins to drip from his nose. And just like that, through him, this terrifying, highly contagious virus begins to spread across the entire globe. A virus that will bring humanity to the brink of destruction and mark the beginning of the Planet of Apes. If you want to hear the next part of this incredible story, definitely let us know in the comments below. And please don't forget to subscribe to our brand new channel.